Hey guys, and welcome on into the next NHL season preview show. And today we're here to talk all about the Ottawa Senators, taking a look at their additions and subtractions, coming free agents, possible lineup, team future bets, and player future bets. And to talk the Senators with me, I brought Dave, JD underscore hockey talks on Twitter/X. Make sure to go follow him. His link is in the description below. Dave, you were on last year's show. But for some of the new subscribers over the year that haven't seen you before, maybe give them a brief introduction of yourself.
Well, first off, thanks for having me on again. Diehard Sens fan. I live in enemy territory in Alberta. Podcast is going strong. We're going to start a second season here coming up. You can find us on Twitter/X at New Era Sens. And yeah, we're stoked to go and excited for the hockey season to start here.
Awesome. Is it considered enemy territory, Alberta? Did Alberta hate on the
It
Senators, or is there
it
a rivalry at all?
it didn't used to, but what happened is when you had Matthew Tkachuk playing for Calgary, obviously Calgary fans pulled for Ottawa. Ottawa fans pulled for Calgary. And I'm not going to say there's a rivalry, but there was a bad taste in each other's mouths from the Kachuk brothers, which they tend to do that.
That's true. Plus, all the Canadian teams playing in a division for a year probably stoked some
Ottawa got
things as
smoked
well.
every game against Edmonton that year. It never happened.
Yeah, exactly. But we've got a pack show. A lot of things to talk about here with the Senators. We'll start with additions and subtractions as we usually do, and a pretty big list here. A lot of trades by the Senators here in the offseason. Looking at the subtractions list here for me, um, Jonas Corposalo is obviously one loss. Jacob Chitrin, I think, is the biggest loss on this list. There are depth guys here overall. Eric Brandstrom never really lived up to his potential here in Ottawa. I'm interested to see how he does this year. Dominic Kubalik um, ended up leaving here this offseason. Um, but overall, a lot of depth guys that I think are replaceable. Jonas Corposalo obviously is gone. Linus Allmark is in. And for me, looking at that, of course, Allmark has played in front of that Boston defense the last few years. But Allmark has played very, very well. And when you look at his numbers against Corpusalo's, it has to be an upgrade, in my opinion. I
Oh
love
yeah,
the sign Allmark for the Senators. A dependable goalie they can rely on, I think, is really important for this team. Looking at the rest of the additions, David Perron is interesting. Bringing him in, I guess, to maybe try to um, cover some of the offense that's lost with the subtractions list. Um, so when I look at it here, yes, the subtractions list is longer for the Senators, but I think they improved here. Now
agreed.
the Chitra loss does hurt, but overall, I think it's a slight improvement here in the offseason for the Senators.
Yeah,
Dave, in subtractions, you don't have to go over every guy, but who do you like that the Senators added? Who are you kind of upset that the Senators let go?
fair. So obviously Allmark, adding Allmark is Vezina winning trophy. You know, 1 year removed, is exciting. We had a lot of hopes for Corpusalo. He played well in LA, just didn't pan out. He's gone to Boston. Allmark is probably the one that we're most excited about because the amount of games that Ottawa lost last year, I think, because they were deflated right off the get go. A goal against within the first 5 shots of the game that happens so many times, and it's just deflating. And you're crawling back from a 1-0 deficit in the first 5 minutes of the game. It's not so fun. I like Nick Jensen. Nick Jensen brings home the defensive defenseman that we desperately need, who can also help teach some of the younger guys how to be smarter defensively, right? Chikrin does hurt. I was a huge fan, I still am, of Chikrin. Excuse me. But his offensive ability is kind of what made him so good. He wasn't super good defensively. And the one thing that Ottawa doesn't have a problem doing is scoring goals. So I'm all for bringing in somebody who's more defensive, who can keep the puck to the outside, all while Allmark just does his job and hopefully doesn't have to face as many high sorry, a bunch of good scoring chances against.
Awesome.
So
Um,
if sorry,
yeah,
but
go ahead.
Kubalik as well. That guy never lives up to the hype. Um, I am kind of sad to see Castella go, not because he was good. He was just a fan favorite. Um, wasn't good at fighting, but he always threw the gloves when he had to. And that guy dominates the physicals every year in every single category. He dominated the physicals at training camp every year.
Awesome. Yeah, and a lot of other depth guys, right? That there's a lot of guys in the subtractions list, but I don't think you're going to lose sleep over
No, you
a
got
lot of.
like I know that Matthew Joseph isn't on that list, but like you got David Perron who's going to come in, who's more of a pest, who also plays forward, right? And he could play pretty much the same thing that Joseph did, minus the foot speed. But David Perron is still really smart on the ice, and I think David Perron will replace the offensive side of things that Matthew Joseph is leaving behind.
Awesome. We'll move on to the second segment here, and we will start with you for this one, Dave. Coming free agents. Not a big list overall when you do look at the list, but both goaltenders, Hallmark and Forsberg, are upcoming free agents. You've got four forwards there, three defensemen. Looking at this list, who do you think are the most important guys to resign, and who would you be okay with if the Senators moved on from this next offseason?
Ridley Gregg is going to be an important part of this team's future, part of their identity. He's a he's an RFA, so I think they'll get that redone. I don't think that's going to be a big problem. Giroux, I think based on how the season goes, we'll see where he goes. I think if they're close or if they make the playoffs, I think he stays. But I also wouldn't be surprised to see Giroux go next year or at the trade deadline to a legit contender. Everybody loves G in Ottawa, and the only thing that hurts me more than losing him is watching him finish his career without a cup. Kind of sucks. Um, Noah Gregor, um, Noah Gregor, same thing. Cruikshank, I like a lot too. Tough little guy. Hamonic, I don't think he's going to make it past after the season. There's already talks about buying him out. Clevin, he's going to be a big part of the future. JBD, he's an interesting one. He's shown glimpses of being really good. But a lot of last season, he kind of just disappeared and just wasn't as good as he was. So we would need to replace him. It would suck to lose him, but he'd be one of those guys I'd be okay with losing. Our hopes in Ottawa is that Allmark gives us a Christmas present and re-ups before the holidays. Anton Forsberg, I think with Matt Sogard's new contract being next season a one-way contract, I think the writing's on the wall for Forsberg. So I think he's going to play this season, and that's going to be the end of that. And then you're going to have Allmark with Sogi as a backup.
Awesome. Yeah, I do have Ridley Gregg here on the screen with Giroux being two guys that I think are important for the Senators to resign. And Ridley Gregg should be okay as long as the St. Louis Blues don't come in with an offer sheet. As I was saying, Ridley Gregg should be okay as long as
Yep.
the St. Louis Blues don't come in with an offer sheet and try
Yeah.
to steal him away from you.
Or
Uh,
Carolina.
keep your eyes on them. They're gonna end up making so many enemies in the league if they keep that kind of stuff up. But yeah, I have him on the screen here. I think he's a really important guy in Senators to resign. Giroux, as you said, yeah, if he's still with the team after the trade deadline, then most likely I would assume he's probably going to look at staying in Ottawa. And hey, if the Senators are in a playoff spot or if they look like they're going to make the playoffs, he may want to stay. He may not want to leave and go to another team. The defense, the two RFAs again, you shouldn't have any trouble re-signing those guys. Hamonic, he's getting up there in age, that's for sure. Definitely a depth guy at all if he does play. And then Allmark, yeah, the big guy you guys got in the off season. We'll see how he likes Ottawa, and yeah, if he resigns during the season, I think that would take a lot of worrying away from the people might have, especially if he's having a great season. You get him signed for a few more years, and then you just don't have to worry about that.
I think
It's important
if
not.
Ottawa, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's important. It's great not to have to worry about a goaltender. So
Yeah, I think if Otto has a decent start to the season, like a good one, he'll extend. Like I said, by Christmas. Um, One of the things that's out there, like information wise, like Alfredson obviously talked to Allmark about how great it was to raise his family there. Eric Carlson and Melinda Carlson, his wife, were two of the first people to reach out to Allmark to help him get set up in Ottawa because the Carlsons still live in Ottawa. His wife is from Ottawa. They still have a house in Ottawa, but they were also big parts of explaining to Allmark that Ottawa is a beautiful and amazing place to raise kids. So I think as far as location wise, Ottawa is very similar to many places in Sweden. From seasons, you know what I mean? Like summer, winter, to how friendly people can be. Just a lot of similarities. So I think all it's going to come down to is team play and, is the team doing well? If so, then I think it's going to be, pen to paper
awesome, and then money, of
and
course.
money.
Money's always important.
Yeah.
But moving on along to the next segment here, we've got the possible lineup. Looking at what the lineup might look like here for opening night for the Sens. I made this lineup like I usually do by looking at depth charts. Nobody attack me in the comments if you don't like a certain guy where he is. Uh, it's 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 all going to change. We haven't even got to the preseason yet, so everything is up in the air here. But looking at the top six, I like them a lot. How can
Yeah.
you not like this top six? Even David Prawn, if he ends up being on the third line, uh, I love that third line as well. Shane Pinto, Ridley Gregg, and Audio. The fourth line, definitely um, is similar to other fourth lines, so I don't think it's going to hurt the Sens. The fourth line there, defense. That's where the question marks are. Jake Sanderson, I think, is going to have a great year. I think we're only going to see him continue to grow as a player. So I'm looking at him to have a big season. Like you said, Nick Jensen is a good defensive piece. So if he's playing with Thomas Chabot, I think that's a great pairing. Nick Jensen can kind of defend things while Chabot can go and work on the offense. And then you've got some other guys there. So there are question marks with the defense, but I really like the forward group for the Sens.
Yeah.
I think I'll be.
There are some
Oh,
questions on the forward side of things, like Josh Norris as a second line center, with all the shoulder injuries. There's a lot of questions on whether they want to move him to the wing and then just bump Pinto up to second line center. So you would see a second line of Josh Norris, Shane Pinto, Drake Batherson, and then third line you would have David Perron, Ridley Gregg, and Michael Amadio, which would be a really good line as well. So that's kind of obviously. Steo said that he sees, or sorry, Green says he sees Norris as a centerman, but I think a lot of people would like to see him on the wing. We just don't want to see him keep hurting that freaking shoulder. As far as defenseman goes, I like Zoo, but he's not a number two guy. Unfortunately, I think the defense is a little more well rounded this season than it was last season. I don't think it's a huge improvement, but hopefully Nick Jensen's stay at home style comes to good use, and he can teach the guys how to be a little more aware in their own zone.
I was muted. Oops. You've got Allmark there as the goaltender. Anton Forsberg. Yeah, a little bit of issues there with Matt on the stream end, but hey, it's all good. Things happen. Or with Dave, sorry, but yeah, things are all good. Allmark here as the starting goaltender. I don't really think there's too many question marks there. And then Forsberg, um, knowing his spot as the backup, I think is important, and I think that'll help him not having to worry about necessarily taking too many games and just being the backup there. So Overall, I really like this lineup. I do. What you were saying, Dave, about Pinto on the second line, I would rather see him on the second line over Prawn. So it makes sense.
Yeah, and Pinto's really good defensively too, so he can go against those second line centers, no problem.
Awesome. Anything you want to say about the goalies before we move on to the next
Uh
segment?
Pretty black and white. Allmark's going to play, I'm going to say 55, 58 games. I think Forsberg's still going to get quite a bit of games, though.
Okay, awesome. Moving on along, we've got team future bets. So taking a look at team future bets here. And I've been saying this a lot with a lot of teams, but the Senators are one of those teams where I'm just not looking at them for the top four bets. And as I say on every show, uh, I'm not running out to go and bet a whole bunch of Stanley Cup, Conference, President's Trophy, or even division bets. Uh, I'm very selective with those. So um, the Senators are not there yet.
No,
They are a team that could be flirting with a playoff spot. I think playoffs at plus 125 is interesting because I do think having Allmark in goal and with the guys that they have on offense, the top six specifically, if that defense plays well in front of Allmark, I could definitely see the Senators getting into the playoffs. So at plus 125, it's something that I lean with here. I haven't pulled the trigger on it yet, but Senators 37, 41, and 4 for 78 points last year. Their total's at 90 and a half this season. So the books are telling you here they see improvement. They see improvement here at the Sens. They expect them to improve. Um, I would go with the make playoffs before I would go with the over 90 and a half points just because you're getting plus money at plus 125. I think if the Senators do hit 91, 92 points, they're most likely making the playoffs. So
that's
I would
kind of
look at
where
the plus 125 to make the playoffs. Everything else on the sheet, I just not yet for the Senators, but they do have a
I,
bright future.
I'm a realistic Sens fan. I agree with everything you just said. I think Ottawa's got a chance of making the playoffs. I think a couple of teams are going to be bumped out this season. And I do think that the 90-point plateau, I have Ottawa between 88 and 92 points kind of finishing there. So I agree with both. Yeah, I think there is a good chance they can squeak into the playoffs and hit that 90.5. 90.5 is a little hard, but if goaltending holds up and we can score, then yeah, I think we can do the 90.5. But yeah, Stanley Cup, Conference, President's Trophy, win the division. None of those are happening.
And then even least points in the NHL, plus 8,000.
Definitely not
I
happen. That's going to go to
or
Montreal.
Drew, yeah, it would take a disaster of a ton of injuries for the Sens to be last in the NHL. That's
Yeah,
for
that honor
sure.
is going to go to either Montreal or to Utah.
As the worst record in the NHL.
Oh, this season, oh, one of those two, man. They're both going to be bottom feeders.
Wow, wow. Completely disagree with you about Utah. We've already done the Utah show. I'm very
Yeah,
high on Utah.
I'm
I think
very
they're
high
going to
on
be
their
a good team.
future. I am very high on their future. I think in 4 years they're going to be a force to be reckoned with, and I'm going to love it. I just don't think they're anywhere near that this season. I don't even think. Yeah,
Okay,
we'll
hey,
see.
hey, a little bit of disagreement's good. But we're not talking about Utah, but we're talking about the Ottawa Senators. So, looking at player future bets here, we've got this list. Let me go through what the players had recently. So, Kachuk, 36 and a half goals, 82 and a half points. Last season, 37 goals. The season before that, 35. The season before that, 30. So the last year he hit it. The 2 seasons prior he didn't. 74 points last season, 83 the season before that. So a small step back last season when you look at it, but I know everyone hates the plus minus stat, but so he did go down 9 points, but was a plus player instead of a minus player. So maybe he worked on the defense a little bit this season, and you saw a small offensive drop. Um, I'm not really interested in the point total here. It's not that I think the Senators are going to be a lower scoring team, but I could see them winning some more 3-2 games instead of some of the higher scoring games last season. Looking at Drake Batherson here, 25 and a half goals. He had 28 last season, 22 the season before. So 6 goal increase there. 66 points last season, 62 the season before that. Drake Batherson, I think, is a player that you could look at for the over here. Tim Stützle, not 39 goals in 22-23, only 18 last year. So a big drop off in the goals, 90 points, 22-23, only 70 last year. So the books are looking at Stützle thinking he's going to go back to more of what we saw in 22-23 versus last year. So we'll see if that is the case. And then Allmark, 26 and a half wins. He had 22 last year in 40 games, 40 the season before that with the Bruins. When I look at this list, there's nothing that really catches my eye here when it comes to player future bets. Dave, is there anything you like on this list?
And this is, I know people are going to say it's biased, but it really isn't. I would take the over on everything for Brady, for Drake, and for Tim. And here's why. All three players are going to be playing more confident, not chasing, not trying to chase the game because they're not going to be playing from behind as much. So they'll be playing more confident. They're going to be playing with a little more experience than they had last year, a little more grit. I'm just comfortable in saying that I would take the over on all of it, including Allmark. As far as the Vezina goes, I wouldn't take that. And the Jack Adams, well, if Green can get us to the show, then it wouldn't surprise me if they give it to him.
Yeah, I can agree with that. That's why I have Green Jack Adams listed here because I think if the Sens do make the playoffs, which I think is possible, I think he could possibly win that award. So if you do like the Sens to make the playoffs, you might want to sprinkle on Green and win the Jack Adams as well because of the great price. Um, that's it. That's the show. Dave, anything else you want to say about the Senators this upcoming season before we finish the show?
I know we sound like Leaf fans on repeat, just like they keep thinking they're going to win the cup. We keep thinking we're going to make the playoffs, and every year you hear the same. It does feel different this year. I feel like last season with Andlauer and Stais coming in, minor changes were made because they were making evaluations to the team, the players, the organization, everything. And now they had a full season to do what they want to do, and I feel very confident in the changes they've made. The coaching staff, I think, is a huge improvement. Goaltending as well. Like I said, D is not a huge improvement, but I think there's some improvement in the defensive play, and I think our bottom six has gotten a lot better. I'm pretty confident in what we're going to see on the ice this year. It's just going to be a matter of are the young players experienced enough at this point to take it to that next level. So that's kind of what we're waiting to see. And I mean, we're all praying on this side. So
All right. Awesome. Everyone go give Dave a follow. JD_Hockey Talks on Twitter/X. Thanks for coming on, Dave. We'll see you again next year if you're free again. And thanks everyone for watching. And we'll see you guys on the next show.
thanks
Thanks.
again.